Hi guys, and welcome back to the Vitality Coach podcast and Vitality Coach TV. I'm your host Nikki Fogden-Moore, and I'm right back in Wilshire Boulevard with Andrea Marcum, yoga guru of the decade.
Quite a title.
I know, well, I think it's going to stick now.
Well, thank you. I hope I live up to it.
So if you haven't seen the earlier podcasts and the video with Andrea where we chat about everything to do with getting into yoga and the purpose of mindfulness and having flexibility not only in your body but also in your approach to life, please do so. We'll put the links on the show notes. But most importantly today, Andrea and I wanted to talk about the power of connection. And we talk about authentic connection, not on Instagram, Facebook, and kind of this third person, look at me generation exhibition, but real connection with your true self and with those people around you that help you resonate and live to your best true potential.
Yeah. There's actually, in yoga philosophy, there's something called Purusha, which is our true self. And our true self, not as you said, as presented in our profile on Instagram or Facebook with all of the sort of blemish-free, perfect aspects of ourselves. The real self, and I believe the connection really has everything to do with that vulnerable, authentic place where you might call it flawed, but it's actually the most beautiful and most interesting of all. All this sort of glossy stuff is not nearly as fascinating and beautiful and interesting as who we really, really are. So, and similarly, when you fall out of a pose, you learn a whole lot more than when you happen to float into it effortlessly and stick it, which doesn't happen all the time. So, or if it's a really challenging pose for you or scary pose for you, it means that you're going to glean the most from it. It means that you're going to connect with yourself and ultimately with your environment and the people around you in a far more effective and progressive way. And that's the kind of connecting that you want to do. The connection where you're leaving a comment anonymously online and there's nothing at stake. There's not anything brave or courageous or creative about that. But being with yourself, sitting and meditating and not distracting yourself with other gadgets or excuses, that's really brave. That's really powerful. And when we learn to connect with ourselves that way, then we have it in us to connect with other people.
Yeah.
And when we feel that connection, we want to connect to our environment, and we feel accountable for how we show up. We feel accountable for how we show up to other people, and we feel accountable for how we show up on our planet, and in this more universal sensibility, I think.
I like the word that you say, how we show up, and I'd like to progress on that comment because as leaders, if you're listening to this and you're a CEO or you're a manager or you're running a household or you're even just trying to be an influencer in your friends, I think that's a fantastic title. People show up, but they're not there.
Yeah.
So the connection and the ability to actually influence people, move with people, and give back to the earth, and all these things, it's times 7 when you have this amazing, peaceful connectedness. So the first thing is recognizing that vulnerability is not a weakness; it's actually a journey, and it's what makes us who we are.
It's powerful.
It's so powerful, and we should be learning that. And you'll find that most successful people have a rag to riches story or a struggle to win story repetitively happening, and they're happy to share that with you because they want to inspire you.
Yeah.
And that's from whether or not you're starting off in a yoga class and you've gone from just doing child's pose to doing your first headstand. That is your own personal win, or whether you're asking for a promotion or you need to get out of a group of friends that are not serving you. You can only do those things well when you're really serving yourself well.
When you know who you really are.
Yeah.
And if you are really convinced of your own profile, bio, and picture, you're not going to have that, as you said, even deeper than intuitive, but I often reference intuitive feeling. And I think it's important also to note that yoga and mindfulness and meditation and those sorts of things is not about tuning out. It's actually about tuning in.
Yeah.
It's actually about feeling, letting ourselves feel. But it puts it in a format where instead of just reacting, we give ourselves the time and the space to respond.
Yeah,
that's a lot of that clarity that you're talking about. If we take a moment, and in the first podcast I mentioned that of the 5 poses, child's pose is a really essential one because we need to pause. We need to be comfortable with being still. I mean, if you think about it, even in a meeting when everybody's on top of each other or in a conversation, if there is a pause, and there's actually companies that take a 2 or 3 minute silence before every meeting, so you don't just feel like you're trying to fill everything up. And that feeds into, every pun intended, what we're feeding ourselves. If we're just always going, our cortisol level is off the charts. But beyond that, it's what we know. If we start to give ourselves license to be, it gives others license to be as well. And then there's space to respond independently and collectively instead of just being knee-jerk and reactive.
And I think, as you said, I just want to bring that back to a physiological level with actually absorption of nutrients and food. And I see these people, they're grabbing their green juices and they're buying all these supplements. And to me, that's just adding layers and layers that are useless. And it's actually you taking the time and your body's in a beautiful state where it can actually take on board all that nutrient. So the same thing for self-education. Unless you're in the right state to truly absorb great information, it's just going to go over you, and you'll just be, it's like what I call serial conference goers, when people go to these big mind motivational conferences, but they'll go to 3 or 4, or they'll spend lots and lots of money and they'll keep going. And they actually, I often ask people, so what did you actually deploy from what you learned? Did you take the time that before you went and bought the next course, did you put anything that you learned into action?
Yes.
And did we take anything we learned when we were eating a meal? Do we give it time to assimilate? Do we give our bodies the job that they're designed to do? Or we just like on autopilot? So I think what you and I are talking about is getting off autopilot. And just, it's silence for a second is the most powerful tool.
And breathing is that too.
We
breathe all the time or we wouldn't be alive. But when you create that spacious, conscious breath, then you have an opportunity to feel it oxygenate you, to feel it calm you down, to feel both sides energetically. And in yoga, where there's a lot of movement, the inhales are where we lengthen and expand, and the exhales are where we contract, and where we find our roots and our groundedness. So there's actually the life force energy in every breath cycle. And again, it's something that feels radically different when you allow it to be subtle, when you allow there to be space to find it.
And I think the practice of proper breathing in yoga helps you become a more intelligent life force because you're getting true oxygenated blood through your body. So some people get embarrassed when they're doing the breathing and they have to put their hand in their belly, and you're actually breathing into your stomach, not into your chest. It's all this physical awareness of using our bodies to the best of their ability. I always say FedEx is not going to send you a new body tomorrow, so you better look after the one that you've got, right? And it's about fresh air sessions, like I'm saying to Ash at the moment. Let's just go for a walk in the morning, but don't raise your heart rate too much. You don't have to get anywhere and sweat. You just need to be in the moment and be kind to your body. So if you are watching and listening to this and you're exhausted right now, maybe just do less rather than trying to flog yourself in the gym or do all the usual suspect stuff. Maybe come up with a new game plan that's going to suit your purpose right now.
And don't underestimate just moving. It doesn't have to be a workout, like you said. It can just be moving. Walk around your neighborhood.
She's rolling her eyes at us.
And see your...
I was like that this morning when I was like, don't walk so fast, just be.
Because a lot of times walking faster, working out really hard is another one of those things where we can use it to tune out. We're actually just, layering that on too, like you were saying with the green juices. A lot of times if you just walk out and allow yourself to see your neighborhood for the first time, that's pretty spectacular. I mean, you don't have to go on a very exotic vacation. If you just open your eyes to what you haven't been seeing, it can feel pretty exotic right next door,
And that's part of that intuitive living, that sixth sense, is that sometimes it feels like, I read that book, Beyond Belief, which is about tuning in to that next level, which is a proven scientific, a whole scientific study, and I'll put the link to this book, or maybe I won't because it's kind of really cool. I don't want everyone to know about it. But it's all about, you'll suddenly see the world differently. You'll hear people, you'll listen differently in meetings, you'll see colours differently. Every day you'll be in awe. And I think, why would we not live like that? Why is there such a challenge to externally live rather than be present?
It comes back to connection. I think that it's become more and more convenient to disconnect and to feel a false sense of connection. And listen, technology is great and it's important, and we're using it now to connect with our audience, right? So, the analogy that I love with technology is that it's a little bit like fire. Fire we can use to cook with, we can warm ourselves with it, we can use it to illuminate things, or we can burn ourselves with it. So it's not that we're saying that technology is horrible and that you need to put it all down, but there has to be some balance in that, where you don't just FaceTime with people, you actually have face time with people. And you turn off your equipment and go out to lunch and eat it slowly and enjoy it, and experience your life instead of just taking pictures of what you're eating and putting it on Facebook, all those sorts of things. Sometimes it's okay if you don't share or like or whatever. You actually love and you live and those sorts of things. I think it's, that's a really, and yoga will bring that into your life. In my first downward facing dog, which was in a gym, and when I was in the middle of a phase where nothing was ever enough, no workout was hard enough, nothing made me feel fulfilled, nobody loved me. That was my story, as we mentioned in the first podcast, and I was sticking to it. And I wandered into a yoga class in a gym, and in my first down dog, I felt that, my goodness, I was and a total face-to-face with myself, and a little bit of nausea. And I thought, how can this possibly be this difficult? It's this shape I've watched other people do. It doesn't look that difficult. I can take 5 step classes and 10 spin classes. I should be able to do this. It was confrontational in a really different and unique way. And I knew in that moment that it was a little bit like stepping into the ocean, and that step where it goes deeper than you thought, and you realize, wow, you just stepped into something that's a little bit more than you even anticipated. Yeah. And then I was either not going to come back ever again or go back the next day. And I totally went back the next day because it caught my attention, and it was for real. Yeah. And I don't mean that to scare anybody.
No, but they say that you make your greatest gains from your biggest weaknesses, and most people turn away. So I think, I always like to put a challenge out on a podcast, and normally it's just get outside and do something. But I think, what things are you most struggling with? What things do you keep shying away from? What areas in health and well-being do you always give up on? Then bring those back on a piece of paper and think about those and pursue those. Yeah. Because they'll give you the fastest results, and you'll be doubly proud of yourself.
And in manageable bits, as you said. If it's, I want to eat healthy, it doesn't mean you have to immediately go on a 20-day juice fast. Yeah, and you don't have to go out and run 10 miles. Yeah. But if you can modify little things and implement them, and then give yourself the space to feel how much better they feel. Go for a walk and enjoy your neighborhood and feel moving in your own body how great that feels. Breathe for a moment in such a way that there's consciousness, and feel the oxygen and the consciousness dancing together in you. And do it for 1 minute. It doesn't have to be for an hour. And then if you feel the reward, if you will, from them, you'll want to do them instead of trying to convince yourself to do them. They'll actually be agreeable enough that you feel like that's what you'd rather do. Yeah. Yoga does that. When you start doing yoga, you don't really feel like you want to go out and eat something horrible. I mean, occasionally, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, you don't really feel like because you've just done this thing that's left you feeling so great and connected that it feels like a radical disconnect to go and do something that will interfere with that.
Yeah, and I think that both Andrea and I have come from backgrounds where we really pushed ourselves physically and mentally, and it was always never enough because we were told that we could probably achieve everything. Yeah. So therefore we had to achieve everything. So whether you've come from a background where you were given a good education and parents and upbringing or school, people in the school that said, you can achieve, you're amazing, or you've come from completely opposite, you're never going to be good enough, why bother? The meeting point is, will it ever be enough? And when you realize that journey, then all of a sudden you're giving yourself permission to just be in the moment. And that, I think, is the most empowering click, that audible click where the journey doesn't stop, the challenges don't stop.
No, it's ongoing.
But yeah, you find things that make your heart sing. Yeah. And you learn from that. Like, I've got the same, body pump, spinning classes, back to back. It was like, woo, and always being known as the super upbeat one. But that meant when I went in to do yoga, it was doubly confronting. Yeah. So I had to find a different way to practice yoga. Yeah. So we're all sitting and talking about breathing now because we've gone from that journey. We weren't born into that journey. We discovered that journey, and we're able to do this on an international platform with you guys because we're living that true journey ourselves, and it's authentically, seamlessly part of our life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So find things that you love and do that more often with your kids. Cook more healthy things with your family. Find friends that include and share that element with you, and do that more often.
Yes.
You know, I think that's the first step, is just make it seamlessly part of your life. No big resolutions, no massive statements. Don't go and buy $150 worth of supplements. Just go maybe down to your fresh farmers market.
Yeah.
And get to know the people that sell the rocket and the fresh cheeses, and I don't know, it's so cool.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be riddled with expectation. In fact, if it does, it'll probably let you down. So instead of expecting anything, just enjoy.
Yeah.
Give yourself freedom to enjoy.
Yeah, and look, you know, we have challenges all the time, right?
So yes.
You know, you're only going to take on as much as you're destined to. So we're our own bosses. You're your own boss as well. So Andrea and I, we both have to practice what we preach and take a moment out, a nano break, or maybe, Andrea, what do you do when you feel that things are piling up? What is your handbrake to go, whoa, I need to slow things down?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that I look at challenges as opportunities. I have to pause for a moment and realize, because challenges are opportunities, and sometimes you can get buried underneath them. You have to reframe. I have to reframe and see this is opportunity. And it's going to make me better. It's an opportunity to learn. So, you know, especially if it's a humbling challenge, those are the best of all.
Yeah.
And I really lean into my meditation practice quite a bit. I make sure that I spend at least my 20 minutes meditating. And there's a number of techniques of meditation that I use that are too much to go into in this podcast, but we can definitely, at some point.
Yeah, we should explore that.
That's become a real essential for me to realign and drop in.
Yeah. And so Andrea might have her form of meditation. For me, mine's probably very simplistic. Mine sometimes has to be 5 minutes, even in the airplane toilet. If that's the only time I can get to actually just sit down. I know it sounds hilarious, but I'm being honest. Like, you know, sometimes it's someone meeting you as soon as you get off the plane, you've got to go and present, or it might just be working from home in the bikini, and I have Roxy the dog, and we go to the beach, and we jump in the ocean, and we come back.
Yeah.
So you don't need a certain length of time to recalibrate.
Yeah.
You need what works for you. So test some stuff out. Like last night, I had the Omvana app, and I put music on for meditation because my mind's like, we're having so many discussions. So, you know, I think we might put our little top tips down. Maybe you've got some links and apps as well, and definitely within your Gaian yoga videos and things, maybe some beautiful meditation.
Yeah. I have a restorative practice on the Gaian.
Okay,
It's a combination of both some gentle movement and a seated meditation. That's kind of a nice entry point, because if you're not used to just sitting and being still, having a little bit of mindful movement that guides you into it can be a really lovely entry point.
Yeah, and the other thing is, don't forget that your children can often be really amazing at doing this with you. So maybe you don't have to compartmentalize everything. And if you have young kids or you have teenage kids, I know some terrific clients of mine that actually have made the plank part of their morning challenge on the weekends together, and they do little meditation sessions in their garden.
Yeah.
And you don't need to have an authentic gong or anything, or some yoga blocks. You just need to have intention.
I have a wonderful client whose 4-year-old, for Shavasana, brings a teddy bear for each of them and places the teddy bear over their eyes and lies down for Shavasana with his head. And it's about the cutest thing ever. But yes, you can absolutely have your family join you.
Yeah, so if you keep hearing that story, oh, well, Nick and Andrea, that sounds really great, but what are you telling yourself? You know, get rid of the buts, get rid of the story. We're challenging you to take a step up, to elevate, to think differently, to get rid of your old beliefs, to reconnect and to find your true self. And we're going to continue this journey to give you top tips on how you can do that. Yeah. Yay. Yay, exciting. All right, guys, so don't forget, everything from this podcast and the Vitality Coach video will be on the show notes of vitalitycoach.com.au. There'll be an episode number. I'll put that all linked on there with transcriptions. You can always email me, nikki@vitalitycoach.com.au. You can visit andreamarcum.com for everything to do with your yoga practice, her new book to be coming out, her tours, events, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be doing a lot more with Andrea in the future, and I can't wait to have you connect with us on, really achieving your personal best.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Thanks for coming and seeing me here at your studio.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure. And thanks to Ashley Streff as well, who's behind the scenes laughing at us while we're filming this. We love you. And thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget, we'd love your feedback. We'd love your testimonials. Leave a, one of your reviews on iTunes. I read them out on every podcast, and I appreciate every one of you. 78 countries, over 35,000 downloads. You're truly blessed, and I feel fantastic to have you as part of my team Vitality. Until next time.